Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to my YouTube channel Master That English, where we understand, analyze, and interpret the important texts and concepts that may be part of your English curriculum. Our topic for today will be the analysis of a novel written by Maheshwata Devi, and the name of the work is Mother of 1084. So get your pens and notepads ready because here we go. Who is Maheshwata Devi? Maheshwata Devi is an Indian novelist, journalist, and social activist. She wrote about the lives of tribal communities, women, and the oppressed, known for exposing social injustice and state violence. She was a winner of many awards, but in chief is the Padma Bhushan that she won in the year 2006. Her works combine literature with activism. Let us try to understand her major works that were written by her. She wrote The Mother of 1084. There is also another story, which is Draupadi. Then Hajar Chaurasi Ki Maa, which was the Bengali title for the work Mother of 1084. Let us now try to understand what is the historical background of the novel that we are going to explore today. When we go back to the history, this is the Naxalite movement that began in Naxalbari, West Bengal in the year 1967, when the youth rebelled against inequality and exploitation. Many students joined the revolutionary movement. The government responded with arrests, torture, and killings. The novel particularly reflects to the two incidents of political turmoil in the state. First is the Barasat killing. In November 1970, the bodies of 11 young political activists were found bound and executed along the Jessore Road near Barasat, causing massive public outrage. The incident was widely documented as an extrajudicial execution carried out by state forces to suppress the radical left uprising. We also had the Baranagar massacre. In August 1971, brutal large-scale purging occurred in the Baranagar and Kosipur areas on 12th and 13th of August. State-backed actors and local resistance cadres systematically hounded, attacked, and killed an estimated of 100 to 150 suspected Naxalite youths in the broad daylight. Let us now understand when was this novel originally written. Originally written in Bengali as Hajar Chaurasi Ki Maa in 1974, this is a political novel based on social realism. It was Samik Bandyopadhyay who translated the novel into English as Mother of 1084. Let us now try to understand the plot summary of this work. The novel starts with our female protagonist, Sujata, who receives a call to identify her son's body. Her son's name is Bhrati. He is also known as the body of 1084. During the course of the story, we understand how Sujata tries to investigate Bhrati's life after his death. And this is learned through the associations Bhrati had with his friends in the past. She discovers the family's emotional distance as she explores more about Bhrati's life in the past. In the ending, what we notice is that Sujata realizes the truth about society and also her family. She emerges within a new awareness of injustice. Let us now try to understand the main characters in this story. We have the female protagonist, Sujata, who is the mother of Bhrati and is the central character. We also have Bhrati, who is an idealistic revolutionary youth. We also have Dibyanath. He is the father of Bhrati and husband of Sujata, the wealthy, patriarchal father. We have Nandini, who is Bhrati's friend with whom he shared the similar ideas and beliefs as in terms of revolution. We also have characters like Nipa, that is Bhrati's married sister, and Tuli, who is Bhrati's other sister. Let us now try to understand how does Sujata first learn about her son's Bhrati's tragic death. Sujata first learns about Bhrati's death when a telephone call early in the morning on January 17, 1970, instructs her to come down to Kantapur police morgue to identify a corpse. Her son, a Naxalite revolutionary, has been gunned down by state forces and reduced merely to the corpse number 1084. But now what we have to understand is, why is Bhrati's corpse identified as 1084 instead of by his name by the police? Bhrati is identified as a number because after his death in police custody, the authorities reduce him to a number instead of recognizing him as a human being. Maheshwata Devi uses this number as a powerful symbol to show how the state dehumanizes political descendants and treat them as anonymous bodies rather than individuals with identities, families, and dreams. Let us also try to understand the interesting aspects about the family members, in particularly the father Dibyanath. So how does Bhrati's father Dibyanath initially react to the news of his son's death? Dibyanath initially reacts to Bhrati's death with shock, anger, and emotional detachment. I know, this may sound surprising. Rather than openly mourning for his son, he is mainly concerned about the family's social reputation and avoiding political trouble. This is what Sujata says about her husband.
A father gets a message on the telephone and doesn't feel for a moment the urge to rush and to see his dead son. The first thing that strikes him is that if it would be unwise to keep the car waiting before Kantapur.
When he sees Bhrati as someone who has brought shame and danger to the family because of his involvement in the revolutionary movement, the father's reaction shows the distance between Bhrati and him. And this highlights the values of the conservative upper middle class family. Let us now try to understand with which revolutionary political movement was Bhrati involved before his death. Bhrati was involved with the Naxalite movement, a revolutionary left-wing movement in West Bengal during the late 1960s and early 1970s. His involvement in the movement ultimately leads to his death in police state violence. We should also try to understand, what does Sujata realize about the social class of Bhrati's comrades? Bhrati definitely did have a different social group than the one in which he was brought up. Because when Sujata visits Somu's mother, which is Bhrati's friend's house, she realizes that Bhrati's comrades mostly came from poor and lower middle class families. Unlike Bhrati, who belonged to a relatively privileged upper middle class family, she also understands that these young revolutionaries were driven by poverty, social injustice, exploitation, and inequality. This visit helps Sujata to see why Bhrati rejected the comfortable life offered by his family and get involved in the revolutionary movement. Even as a child, Bhrati was interested in poetries of death. He was sensitized to the wrong actions that the family members would commit, and which is why he felt very disconnected to every member in his family besides his mother. Now let us try to understand what was Bhrati's role in the revolutionary group before he was killed. Bhrati bridged the gap between the urban student intellectuals and the rural slum working class. He operated within a tight-knit, secret underground cell to plan anti-state resistance. He taught revolutionary ideology to marginalized youths such as his comrades Somu. Bhrati was committed to the movement against social inequality, exploitation, and injustice. We should also try to understand who is Nandini and how does she help Sujata to understand Bhrati's life. Nandini is Bhrati's close friend and fellow revolutionary. They had plans to get married. She becomes very important to Sujata because Nandini helps her understand the real Bhrati, his ideas, his political commitment, and his reasons for joining the revolutionary movement. Through Nandini, Sujata realizes that Bhrati was not simply a rebellious son, as his family believed, but a young man deeply involved in the revolutionary movement. He had a meaningful life and identity beyond being the number 1084. Let us now try to understand, why does Sujata's perspective on her marriage change as she investigates about Bhrati's death? Sujata's view of her marriage changes deeply. Initially, she sees her family Initially, Sujata sees her marriage as empty and emotionally distant. Her husband Dibyanath is more concerned with social status, comfort, and appearances than the understanding of her feelings. Bhrati's death makes her question her husband's values and the family's hypocrisy. She realizes that her husband and other family members had failed to understand Bhrati. As Sujata learns more about Bhrati's ideals and his friends, she becomes more independent and critical of the privileged world in which she lives, where people are just interested in giving whimsical talks about things that they should do in terms of intercaste marriage, and also talk about saintly aspects of building up a divine life. She understands her marriage had been based largely on social convention rather than genuine emotional companionship. Ultimately, Sujata becomes emotionally detached from her husband and identifies more strongly with Bhrati's struggle for justice and humanity. In this way, Bhrati's death becomes a turning point for Sujata, as it makes her recognize the emptiness of her marriage and gives her the courage to question the values of her family and society. Let us now try to understand. During her journey of understanding, Sujata has several revealing conversations with her daughter Nipa. What does Sujata realize about Nipa's life? Sujata realizes that Nipa's life is also shaped by the values of the privileged, upper class society in which she has grown up. Through her conversations with Nipa, Sujata discovers that Nipa is largely concerned with marriage, social status, and personal comfort. She has accepted many of the conventional values of her family and society. Unlike Bhrati, Nipa does not question the social inequalities and injustices around her. In fact, Sujata is able to see that Nipa has become emotionally distant from Bhrati's ideas and does not truly understand why he chose the revolutionary path. This makes Sujata aware of the gulf between her children. Bhrati questions society, while Nipa largely accepts it. In this way, Sujata realizes that her children have been shaped very differently by the same family environment, and this deepens her criticism of the privileged world she belongs to. But what is interesting to understand is that at the end of the novel, during an anniversary commemoration, how does Sujata publicly defy the oppressive forces around her? Sujata publicly defies the oppressive social forces by refusing to remain silent about Bhrati and the injustice surrounding his death. She openly remembers Bhrati instead of allowing society to erase his identity. She rejects the hypocrisy of the privileged class, including her own family. She stands in solidarity with Bhrati's ideas and the oppressed, rather than accepting the official version of his death. She uses her position as a mother to challenge the social and political system that treated her son as a mere number 1084. From a grieving, silent mother, she becomes a conscious woman who challenges state violence, social injustice, and the indifference of the privileged class. So now let us try to understand what tragic physical crisis does Sujata experience at the climax of her confrontation. At the climax, Sujata experiences a severe physical and emotional collapse during her confrontation with people around her. Her intense grief, anger, and psychological strain has become overwhelming, and she loses consciousness and faints. This physical crisis reflects the enormous emotional burden she has carried while confronting the truth about Bhrati's death and the hypocrisy of her family and society. That is the reason why the novel ends with the lines that her appendix has burst. We should also try to understand how does Sujata's experience become the voice of all mothers who lose their children to violence. Sujata's journey shows that motherhood is emotional, as Sujata deeply feels the pain and the loss of her son Bhrati, especially because her family fails to understand her grief. She is protective like any mother. She wants to understand her child, protect his memory even after his death. She also undergoes a level of transformation as Bhrati's death changes Sujata from a passive housewife to a woman who questions her family and society. She also becomes politically aware as she begins to understand that Bhrati was not simply a criminal, but a young person caught in a violent political conflict. She questions the state's use of violence and the society's indifference. So, in the end, we see a universal voice through Sujata. Maheshwata Devi represents countless mothers whose children become victims of political violence, injustice, and oppression. Through Sujata, the writer makes the reader question who is really guilty? The individual who resists injustice, or the society and state that suppress such resistance? As Sujata's journey challenges readers to move from indifference to awareness and from silence to moral responsibility. For through Sujata, we question what does it mean to be truly human in a society marked by injustice, violence, and inequality. Let us now try to understand how does the novel criticize violence by the state. In Maheshwata Devi's novel, Mother of 1084, the novel strongly criticizes state violence during the period of political unrest and the Naxalite movement. There was police brutality, as the state uses the police to suppress young people suspected of being Naxalites. Arrests, torture, and killing show how government power is misused. Even Bhrati's death, as a young revolutionary, he is killed by the police. His body is treated as an official case number 1084 rather than as a human being. This shows dehumanization. The state reduces individual to numbers and labels such as criminal or Naxalite, ignoring their identity, beliefs, and grievances. We see the suppression of dissent as the government responds to young people who question social injustice with force instead of addressing problems such as poverty, inequality, and exploitation. There is a need to understand the silence and fear that the violence creates fear in society and encourages ordinary people to remain silent rather than question the authorities. And by the end, Sujata's awakening, through her search for a truth about Bhrati, Sujata realizes that the violence was not simply a matter of law and order. It reflected deeper social and political failures. In this way, Maheshwata Devi presents state violence as a form of oppression that destroys both individuals and families. The novel questions the legitimacy of a state that uses violence to silence dissent instead of understanding the causes of rebellion. Let us also try to understand what are the social and economic inequalities that existed in the society and contributed to political unrest. The most important binary feature that we notice is the class disparity as the rich versus the poor. The novel shows a wide gap between the wealthy families like Sujata's and poor struggling people like Shomu's mother. As rich people like Dibyanath are able to destroy all proof about Bhrati's involvement in the Naxalite movement, this is how we also get to see the underlying layer of privileged versus the oppressed. The upper classes are enjoying comfort and power, while the poor and marginalized people face exploitation and injustice. And as a complete binary, what we see is this is how capitalism shows as a binary with revolution, because the unequal capitalist system creates frustration among young people. And that is the reason why this leads to some of them to support revolutionary movements. We get to see social discrimination. Society judges people according to their class and social status and ignores the voices of the weaker sections. And last but not the least, we see the economic injustice. Poverty and unequal distribution of wealth create anger and dissatisfaction among the oppressed. In this way, as an overall effect, Maheshwata Devi uses Bhrati's story to expose the deep social and economic inequalities that existed in society and contributed to political unrest. Now let us try to understand this story from the feminist perspective. What were the challenges Sujata faced and how does she overcome them in this novel? Sujata, as we have understood, is the central character of this novel, Mother of 1084. Throughout the novel, she undergoes a profound emotional, intellectual, and political transformation. She evolves from a quiet, submissive housewife into a courageous woman who questions her family, society, and the state. The challenges she faces include patriarchal family, male authority, gender inequality, and emotional suppression. In patriarchal narratives, Sujata's life is a microcosm of the structural and psychological barriers women face within traditional societies. Her challenges imposed on her were meant to violently erase her female identity. This is how we see women as a microcosm of oppression. The patriarchal family and the male authority are the macro, whereas the foundational challenge Sujata faces lies within the domestic sphere, where the family unit operates as an institutional tool of patriarchy. Within her family, Sujata experiences domestic confinement, where her value is strictly tied to her performance of gendered labor as a wife and mother. This is visible when the writer describes her as old-fashioned in her appearance, and her nature is also described as quiet and taciturn. As all major life decisions, financial choices, and family rules are dictated by the dominant male figure, like Dibyanath, who completely is bypassing her consent. The only time the deviation is noticed is when she is asked to quit her job, but she refuses. And second time when she refused to have another child after Bhrati. In this way, traces of feminism were noticed when Sujata fought for her identity and biological rights. At all times, she was met with social penalization and psychological alienation. This is how we also get to see systematic marginalization, that is, gender inequality. Patriarchal societies maintain control through rigid double standards, and Sujata is a direct casualty of the system.
Bharati used to say that his father used you like a doormat.
Her actions, her actions, choices, and desires are judged by a strict moral code that does not apply to her male counterparts. Furthermore, her emotional, physical, and mental labor within the household is systematically devalued and rendered invisible. She is marginalized within her own home, possessing no voice in the structures that govern her daily existence. We also see the home as an internal battlefield where there is emotional suppression. To maintain patriarchal harmony and preserve the family's public reputation, Sujata is forced into a state of silenced grief. She is denied the right to openly process her trauma, sorrow, or anger. This enforcement of the ideal, self-sacrificing woman leads to severe internalized trauma and profound psychological isolation. Her forced silence acts as a form of psychological violence, designed to break her spirit and prevent any spark of rebellion. We also get to see the cost of defiance. She is becoming an independent thinker. This is what she says to Divyanath.
2 years ago, for 32 years, I never asked you where you spent your evenings or who you accompanied you on your tours for the last 10 years or why you paid the house rent for your ex-typist. You are never to ask me a thing. Never.
The turning point in Sujata's narrative occurs as she resists this conditioning to become an independent thinker by actively unlearning decades of patriarchal indoctrination and rebuilding her worldview from scratch. Her newfound independence places her in direct opposition to her traditional surroundings. The community and family retaliate with alienation. Sujata's final challenge is enduring this painful exile, proving that for a woman in a patriarchal world, the act of thinking independently is radical, dangerous, and isolating revolution. Her evolution transforms her narrative from one of passive victimhood to radical resistance, illustrating the painful but necessary path towards female liberation, showing that while the price of autonomy is incredibly high, it is the only path towards reclaiming one's humanity. As she meets Bharati's friends, especially Nandini, she realizes that her son was not a criminal, but an idealistic young man fighting against injustice. Gradually, she understands that Bharati's death is a part of a larger pattern of state violence and state oppression. As from silence, she moves to courage, daring to question her husband, family, and the society. She refuses to accept the official version of Bharati's death. Her motherhood becomes symbolic of all mothers who suffer injustice. So, this is what we learn about Sujata's transformation. And why is it significant? Sujata's journey represents the awakening of individual conscience, a challenge to patriarchy and social hypocrisy, the transformation of personal grief into political awareness, the power of a mother's love to seek truth and justice. And by the end of this novel, we get to see this novel from the human right perspective. Maheshwata Devi's work is a powerful critique of human rights violation during the Naxalite movement in India. The novel highlights how the state and society fail to protect the dignity, freedom, and rights of ordinary people. It raises question about right to life, protection from torture and custodial violence, right to dignity, freedom of thought and expression, right to equality, women's right and voice. Let us understand these human right perspectives one at a time. First, we have the right to life. This is what we get to see in the words of Somu's mother.
Why did they have to kill them, Didi? They could have maimed them, but let them live. At least I would have known my Somu was alive. He could have lived far from my sight. They could have kept him in prison. Still, at least, I'd have known that he lived. Tell me why I've been punished like this.
Bhrati and many other young revolutionaries are killed without a fair trial. Their lives are treated as insignificant. The novel questions the state's responsibility to protect every citizen's right to live. Bhrati is killed in the police custody and identified just as a number 1084. Let us now understand the second perspective in the human rights format, which is protection from torture and custodial violence. We get to see this perspective from Nandini's voice.
Oh, you haven't guessed. My optical nerves were damaged from the exposure to the glare of the lamp for 72 hours at a stretch. My right eye is totally blind. One can't tell by looking at me, though.
Through Nandini, the novel exposes police brutality and custodial deaths. It condemns the use of violence by authorities to suppress the political oppression. We also have the right to dignity, where human beings deserve respect even after death. By calling Bhrati just a number, the authorities erase his identity and humanity. And lastly, we also have freedom of thought and expression. Bhrati joins the revolutionary movement because he dreams of a more equal society. The novel shows how young people with different political beliefs are silenced through violence. Bhrati is punished for his ideas rather than being allowed to express them peacefully. And then we have right to equality. This is noticed by Somu's mother.
As for me, Didi, I have eyes yet I'm blind. I have legs yet I'm lame. Didi, my daughter tells me that she'll never get a job because she's Somu's sister. Can it be true, Didi?
The novel exposes deep social and economic inequalities. Poor and marginalized people suffer exploitation. They lack the wealthy privilege and protection, which is why they don't even get job opportunities because of the stigma they carry for the wrong that has been done for the revolutionaries. We also get to see the right to justice. The novel questions whether justice exists for victims of state violence. Bhrati's death is never properly investigated, and those responsible are held accountable. His family receives no explanation or legal justice for his death, which is why the family just wants to erase it to avoid being targeted by the social world. And most importantly, we see women's right and voice. This is noticed through Tuli, who went on staring at Sujata.
Enough is enough, Ma. You've turned this house into a tomb, Ma. Father doesn't say a word when you're about. Brother has a guilty look all the time. Everybody tries to hush up an incident like one we had. That's natural. Bhrati is dead. You must think about the living.
Sujata is ignored and marginalized within her own patriarchal family. Even the women in the family pretend to follow and honor the ideals of the male world. Whether it is the young daughter Tuli, who pretends to imitate the actions of her grandmother as she did when she was alive. This is how we get to see that Sujata's search for the truth is that she needs to find her voice and challenge the injustice. Through this novel, Maheshwata Devi argues that human rights are essential for every individual, regardless of political beliefs or social class. Through Bhrati's death and Sujata's awakening, she condemns state violence, social inequality, and the denial of justice, while emphasizing the importance of human dignity, equality, freedom, and compassion. And most important aspect that we should discuss by the end of this work is what is the modern relevance of this novel even today? The novel remains relevant because it addresses multiple aspects. It talks about state violence, it talks about human rights, youth activism, political repression, social inequality, women's voices, the search for justice. We look at the Gen Z world today and see how they have been able to raise their voices when inequalities were being experienced on the education level also, quite a few months back. But what is important here to understand is Maheshwata Devi has represented a beautiful thought that with the current time can be diversified and explored at a greater stretch, because now we have better tools that help us to modify ourselves and keep us more equipped in making our voice heard. But we need to do it on a subtle term so that nobody undergoes a level of torture for being an active spokesperson for the wrong or injustice being done. We need to hold hands together and then act accordingly, because small groups will eventually lead to absolute dissolution and they will dissolve on their own. This is why it is important to understand the reason why the writer chose a number for her title. Clearly, she wanted to highlight that this is what represents the loss of identity. The boy Bhrati is stripped of an individuality because he's the only one representative of this humanitarian cause. The fact that he represents a minor representation of his community, he is dissolved in a blink of an eye. We also get to see state oppression through the title, as the numbering of his body reflects the brutality and indifference of the state towards revolutionary youth. And most importantly, we get to see dehumanization. This is how the political violence turns people into statistics rather than human beings. This is what is the universal symbol. Bhrati represents countless young people who died fighting against injustice and whose identities were erased. This is why the mother's protest in this novel emphasizes she is not only Bhrati's mother, but also a symbol of all mothers who have lost their children to political violence. This is why the title is deeply ironic. While the police see Bhrati as a mere number, Sujata remembers him as her beloved son. Through her journey, Maheshwata Devi restores Bhrati's humanity and exposes the cruelty of the system that reduces individual to numbers. The novel, therefore, criticizes state violence and affirms the dignity of every human life. By naming the novel Mother of 1084, Maheshwata Devi highlights Sujata's transformation from the mother of one son to a symbolic mother of every oppressed youth, making the title a powerful critique of state repression and the loss of human dignity. That brings us now to the end of this lecture. It is important for us to understand that this novel beautifully represents a million aspects in relation to the human rights, state violence, and the social and economic inequality that we have seen all throughout. There is a lot we can learn from the way in which Maheshwata Devi has made this significant contribution through this work and told us that this work remains very essential for us because it addresses universal issues as the human rights, state violence, social inequality, women's empowerment, youth activism, and justice are factors that are important even today, and they cannot be left ignored if we want our economy and our nation to develop hand in hand so that there is not much of gap between the society's growth on basis of unequal distribution of wealth and the amount of burden that the families have to live with to sustain the pressure. I hope this lecture has helped you in understanding the beautiful universal idea that the writer tried to weave through a beautiful narration. And if you feel this video was helpful, do give it a like, share it with someone who you feel can also benefit in understanding this important text, and do share your thoughts if you feel this content was helpful to you in any way. This is me, Karishma. Until we meet next time, take care.